panicky.
Yeah, we're on.
We shut it?
Yeah, dramatic start to our meeting today
Wow.
with your,
Yeah.
All I have to do is figure out where I am and who I am. And get glasses.
yeah.
All right. So good morning.
Good morning.
So it was an interesting attempt to get here. Every time I tried to cheat, there was a tree down, so there you go. This is Monday, June.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Different glasses.
Different agenda.
There it is. This would be Wednesday, June 10th. It's 9 a.m. and we are in the Mounds View City Hall Council chambers. Let the record reflect that we are missing Andrew Hagelin. Otherwise, staff and managers are all present.
And here she comes.
And we are at the open mic. Any Race Creek Watershed District resident may address the board in his or her individual capacity for up to 3 minutes on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are requested to come to the podium, state their name and address for the record. Additional comments may be solicited and accepted in writing. Generally, the Board of Managers will not take official action on items discussed at this time, but may refer the matter to staff for future report or direct that the matter be scheduled on an upcoming agenda. I see we have people in the audience. Is there anyone here who wishes to have access to the open mic?
Will there be public comment on the Jones Lake?
Why don't you, I don't know, so why don't you go ahead? You have something to say.
President Bradley, just to be clear, the Jones Lake item today is not a public hearing.
Yeah.
It is not, okay. Scott Robinson, 8179 4th Avenue, Lino Lakes, Minnesota. I've been before you a lot, about 10/22/32, right? It's kind of, what I've seen about the Jones Lake, there's some state money, there's some EPA grants, I believe, right?
Correct.
We had to apply for them. The board must have applied for these
Correct.
grants. And so I guess I ask you, when you're coming up to look at the work session coming up about 10/22/32, is there a possibility to apply for grants to fix those problems that have been by negligence of, in my mind, negligence of earlier boards that did not maintain that ditch to the level that it was dug when it was repaired by my grandfather and uncle. And so I'm wondering if there are some state grants or some avenues there at the watershed could utilize, because that would be a very expensive project to lower and replace that culvert to a larger size under the airport.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? And let the minutes reflect. Manager Hagelin probably had the same problems I did getting here.
There's some traffic issues.
There are some definite traffic issues
Yep.
this morning. So thank you for getting here. And we're ready to set the agenda.
Yes, Manager Bradley, consistent with the board workshop on Monday, we'd like to add a new action item 3, the district fleet truck edition. No other proposed changes by staff.
Okay, any proposed changes by board? If not, can we have a motion to set the agenda?
So this is Janet. I move to set the agenda as amended by our administrator.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Manager, why not second that? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Manager, are you settled down enough to bring us the minutes?
Yes,
Thank you.
I did my homework. So I would move to approve the minutes of the May 27th regular Race Creek Watershed Board of Managers meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. So passes. Okay. That takes us then to the consent agenda.
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers, staff have one permit application on the consent agenda today. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anyone have questions to Patrick about Item 26-031, City of Land Lakes. If there's no questions, can we have a motion, please?
Mr. President, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as outlined above, table of contents in accordance with the Rice Creek Watershed District Engineers' findings and recommendations of June 2nd, 2026, and the application is number 26-031.
Is there a second?
I second. This is Janet.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, it passes. Thank you, Patrick, thank you. And this would be Holly.
Good morning, Mr. President, Board of Managers. For your consideration today is one water quality grant application, W26-01. It's a shoreline restoration and stabilization over in Matamidi. The CAC reviewed the project and it passed unanimously for recommendation to the board. If you have any questions, let me know.
Anyone have any questions for Molly? If not, can we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the consent agenda as outlined in the above table of contents in accordance with the, is that the right one? No.
Nope. Huh? That would be
Shoreline.
outreach grants. Yeah.
With RCWD outreach and grants technicians recommendation dated June 1st, 2026, and this was recommended by the Citizens Advisory
Could
Committee.
you give us the number of the issue?
Oh, I'm sorry, number W26-01.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Molly.
Mr. Chair, before Molly steps away, I think we might want to consider having the Citizens Advisory update to the board at this point when we're looking at recommendations on
This would be an opportunity.
this would be the opportunity,
So the
as
point-
long as Molly is here.
So as prepared as you always are every time you come before us, is there anything from the last meeting or otherwise, the CAC, that you'd like to report to us?
Mr. President, the last meeting went well. We had an addition to the agenda to discuss onboarding procedures for new CAC members. There was some concern from various members about just integrating into the processes that they do and understanding the workings of the district, and they suggested maybe having a board member talk with them and kind of give them the rundown of everything that happens and the role of the board, and then also to have staff give a little bit more of a comprehensive introduction on how things are run. So there was a really good discussion about that. Kendra and myself have some homework to do to see how we can improve our existing procedures that we do. And then there was our discussion of the water quality grant application. And then the members did bring some really great announcements and updates this time. So we've been encouraging them to bring updates from their surrounding communities. So we had some announcements for some upcoming events, and then also some suggestions on how we announce our events to the public and to add them to our website. Because right now we are just doing social media and then through other outlets like newsletters. So Kendra's going to look into adding that to our website. So great suggestions this month.
Great job on the fly. Good
Wow.
for you.
I never doubted it.
I have a couple other comments about the meeting too. It is very apparent that the people that are on a board as citizens are professionals in their own right. And I mean, we have someone on there that's attending an international environmental conference soon. So that's also part of the update in the midst of all of that. And then there was also the question, when when the CAC recommends something to the board, what's the mechanism that the board has then acted upon it? And one of the specific question was, what happened with the flood simulation presentation? And we were able to respond to that. And the other item that I think connects very closely with what we discussed on Monday was the whole alignment of the city water plans with the watershed plans that are coming up. So, to my point, a couple of these folks are sitting on their community planning commission. So there's real opportunity to have robust conversation and information from them. It was also done via Zoom, which is in response to the CAC saying if there's not a full 2 hours worth of business, let's have the flexibility to go to Zoom, and I think it worked out very well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Molly. So I think we'll move on now to Centerville Lake Allen project. Matt?
Make sure this comes up here. How are we doing? Getting there? There we go. Yes. Okay. President Bradley, members of the board, thank you for having us today. We are here because the Centerville Lake Alum project is complete. We have received the second pay application from the alum applicator. So we are here to process that, but also give an update on the project and close it out. So with me is Joe Bischoff of Bar Engineering. We are going to go through a few slides here. It will conclude with the pay application and, of course, any questions that the board might have. So I'll touch a little bit on the project background. Wanted to remind the board of what this project was all about. Touch also on the financing. As you can tell from the logo that's included on the screen here, a big part of this project was funded by Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment, specifically the Clean Water Fund. The district got a grant from that. Joe will talk a bit about project execution and the pay request, and I'll finish up with the board motion and next steps. So the problem here on Centerville Lake was poor water quality, specifically really high phosphorus concentrations and algae blooms. Here are some photos from Centerville Lake prior to the alum project. Algae blooms were frequent and occasionally quite severe, as we're seeing in the photos here. So this was the problem that we were attempting to solve with this project. On Monday at the board workshop, we talked about the district's monitoring program. What we're looking at here is monitoring data from Centerville Lake. And we're looking at this over time from 1980 up to, I think, 2023. I'm sharing this graph just to let you know that what the monitoring program was detecting on Centerville Lake prior to this project starting was an increasing trend, a statistically significant increasing trend in both phosphorus and chlorophyll A. So kind of the data side of the problem statement here. So we did, in doing the diagnostic work here, we could see that the district and the district partners had put forth a lot of effort to address external phosphorus loading, nutrients that were coming from the watershed. So for example, those photos on the left there are showing a shoreline stabilization project that the district and the city of Centerville worked on together. That was a severely eroding shoreline on the eastern side of the lake. Stabilized that. On the bottom there, we're looking at the boat launch that's part of the Anoka County Parks system on the whole, what would that be, western side of the lake. They did some major park improvements over the past 20 years that included a lot of water quality treatment. There was some assistance from the district there as well. The city of Centerville has done a lot of BMPs downtown city of Centerville to treat stormwater, that type of thing. So what we're seeing here over the last 20 plus years is some pretty significant investment and effort to address external phosphorus loading going into Centerville Lake. And yet we still had a problem. So additional diagnostic work looked at internal phosphorus loading, phosphorus that was being recycled inside of the lake. So this happens in all lakes, but the levels of the phosphorus that can come up out of the sediments in the bottom of the lake can vary. So as part of our monitoring program, what we could do here is collect sediment cores from the bottom of Centerville Lake, ship them off to a lab where they could actually measure the amount of phosphorus that's coming out of those sediments. At the end of all of this exercise, we could put together a pie chart like this, which shows us different phosphorus sources or a phosphorus budget for Centerville Lake. And what this showed us was that the largest phosphorus source was that internal phosphorus loading, phosphorus that's being recycled inside of the lake. So this would need to be addressed if we were going to make improvements in water quality. So what we looked to for this, and the most commonly used tool for addressing internal phosphorus loading, is aluminum sulfate, or alum. Alum has been used across lakes in North America and Europe. It's been used in Rice Creek before. It was actually previously used in Centerville Lake in 1998, although the 1998 alum project there was a very light alum dose, and we were pretty confident that we were no longer seeing the benefits of that anymore. Alum was, of course, also recently used in Baldego Lake successfully. Baldego Lake has been delisted from the state's impaired waters list, in large part due to that effort. So a very commonly used tool, alum, aluminum sulfate. So to finance this, we knew it was going to be expensive. To finance this, the district put together a Clean Water Fund grant, and we were awarded a grant in the amount of $954,500. That was in 2023. We were very proud of that grant application. That was ranked #1 in the state out of more than 50 applications. New, I think, in 2023 also was the match requirement went down. So going into this project, we were assuming that we might need up to about a 25% match, but the program changed. We only needed a 10% match. So roughly 90% of the cost of this project is being covered by the state grant. Also, I should mention the cities of Centerville, Lino Lakes, and Anoka County are all chipping in money. I'll touch on that next. And Joe will talk more about the alum applications, but it was split in 2 separate applications, 2024 and 2026. So again, just wrapping up this year. So the financial rundown, here's what it looks like. The pre-project cost estimate was a little over $1 million. The vast majority of that is just paying for the product itself, aluminum sulfate, although we also pay the applicator to apply it, and then some engineering fees. The budget that we put together to cover this exceeded that slightly, kind of just in case. We wanted to make sure we had enough budget here. So the Clean Water Fund grant, $954,000. The district was in for at least $50,000, and then the 3 partners, that is Anoka County, City of Centerville, and Lino Lakes, were to pitch in up to $35,000 each, for a total of $1.1 million. So our budget was a little bit higher than what we had to, than what we might need for this. Here's the update then, the actual costs. Of course, this is a summary. We have a more detailed summary that's going to be submitted to the state as part of the grant application. A quick note, so the very top line there, the actual cost for alum. I'll note that when we got quotes for this, and we went out and sought quotes for the alum application, the quote came in just slightly under what the budget amount was. So this year, when we were confident that things were going well, we knew that we were tracking slightly below budget. We did process a change order to increase the alum application amount so that we would bring it up to that budgeted amount. In doing so, we were ensuring that we were fully utilizing the grant dollars, so we weren't giving grant dollars back to the state at the end of the project. Engineering came in slightly below budget, so our total actual cost slightly below the pre-project cost estimate. This is all. I'll hand it off to Joe to give an update on the project itself.
Great.
Welcome, Joe.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, and thanks for having me work on this project. These are projects that I'm very passionate about, lakes and passions, and so these are the types of projects that really I get excited about doing. So I appreciate the opportunity to work with you on this project. Just to kind of walk through, I want to give you just a little background on alum, why we think it's such an effective tool, why we've been very effective with it in the state over the last 10 to 15 years. You know, phosphorus is a limiting nutrient. If we can manage phosphorus in the lakes, we can manage algal blooms in the lakes. And so this is just a graph showing you, just as you increase phosphorus, you lose water clarity, you get increased algal growth. If we can take it away, it reacts in the same way. So that's why we really focus on phosphorus management, and why alum is so effective, because it binds phosphorus and makes it unavailable for algae growth. So the phosphorus can stay in the lake, but it binds it in a way that it can never be used by algae. So that's why this tool works out really well. And when you have beaches that look like this is Centerville Lake, you get some really severe algae blooms. And these can be cyanobacteria blooms that can become toxic. So these can become not only human health issues, but issues for pets and other wildlife that come in there. So when you have severe blooms, you need to do something about it, and relatively quickly. So what we like to use is aluminum sulfate. It's applied as a liquid. They basically take raw aluminum and boil it in sulfuric acid, and they create the liquid alum, and then we inject that into the lake. So it does come in at a very low pH, so pH management's an important part of this project, and I'll tell you about that. But when you apply it to the lake, it forms a white precipitate. That's what you see going on behind the vessel there. And that white precipitate will settle down into the sediments and bind that phosphorus. So then it stops that recycling of sediments that's in there. It's very stable in the environment. Once it's settled into those sediments, the pH range makes it very stable. So anoxia, low oxygen, none of these things will break that bond with phosphorus. So it's essentially a permanent bond to keep that phosphorus in the sediments. So the way we apply it is this is the application vessel. You can see it takes a minute there. You can see the 5 tanks that are on the vessel itself. You can see they fill those tanks. They are plumbed separately. Sometimes we buffer the alum treatments. We did not have to do that for Centerville Lake, but they're plumbed separately, so you could put different chemicals in each one of those tanks and apply them simultaneously. Those are applied through the dropper hoses on the back of the vessel. Those are about 18 inches under the water. They're applied under pressure, so it forces that hydrolyzation. So you want to pressurize it and push it into the water and really form that flock formation. Kind of force that process that goes in there. So when the vessel's out on the lake, he has a screen. He's basically painting the lake or like mowing the lawn. He has a screen that we've given him a shapefile. And so he just follows that and paints it at the rates that we prescribe. If he crosses a zone, so if it's one rate in one zone and then he crosses a zone, his application equipment automatically adjusts those rates. So all he has to do is basically drive and paint the lake as he goes out there. And you can see as it's injected, the clear area right behind the boat is when the hydrolysis is occurring. So that's when your pH is going to drop in the lake. And then as that white flock forms, the pH recovers based on the alkalinity of the lake. And we did the calculations before the application to make sure there was enough alkalinity to recover where we weren't going to have any pH issues in the lake itself. So then you form a flock that looks like this. It's a white precipitate. It forms these clouds in the lake. It settles very quickly. In fact, when we were out there monitoring pH, Matt had the depth finder going, and you can see the flock settling. So in the top part there, that's the flock on the surface, and all the little pieces are the flock raining down into the sediments. This was directly behind the boat. I mean, we were maybe a couple hundred yards behind the boat itself. So that settling process goes very quickly. Usually all that aluminum's out of the water column within a day or two and settled into the sediments. It settles very rapidly as you go through it. The process itself, it's delivered in trucks. It is a hazardous material, so it has to be trucked specifically under hazardous chemical rules. Those trucks pull up to the site. They're unloaded into temporary storage tanks on the shore that look like this. All those temporary tanks have spill containment mats. You can see those little lipped mats underneath it. So if there's any tank leaking, we're controlling all of that material that's in there. And then from these tanks, they pump it onto the vessel itself, and then they keep it rapidly going. They do this partially to make sure that the truck's not sitting too long on the site. You don't want to have trucks backed up because then you have to pay extra fees for those trucks. So they get them into the tanks, and then they're going out into the lake itself, and that process goes very quickly. They're very good at what they do for this process. Our job is to make sure that what they're applying is that they're applying the right amount and the actual chemical that we prescribed. It is a food grade chemical. This is used in water treatment plants. So we want to make sure it's devoid of any impurities. These are the types of sheets that we get. You'll see just aluminum oxide, the Al2O3. That's what we look for. That has to be 8.3%. That's in kind of that ballpark of what we're looking for in terms of that. And then we do other calculations to make sure that the density of the liquid changes when it's based on the temperature of that. So we use this Baume calculation and make sure that we are getting the amount that we want. So the goal for us is just to make sure the mass of aluminum that they're applying to the lake is the mass that we prescribed in the technical specifications. And then we look at their trucking information, which has weights on it to say this is the amount of weight of the truck actually matches what's on their chemical documentation. And then we do a lot of pH monitoring during the process. The contractor is required to do pH monitoring because you don't want it to go below 6. That's when aluminum can become toxic to fish. And so they're doing continuous monitoring behind the barge. They do it once per hour. They'll do it right behind the barge and then in the flock zone to make sure that the pH is holding up. We'll do a daily jar test. This is showing that I actually do field work once in a while, not just lab work. But we can do a jar test. It's literally a 5-gallon bucket. I put the same amount of alum in that 5 gallons, representing what we would do in the lake, and we measure the pH change. The contractor is required to do that every day before application occurs to make sure that pH is holding up the way that we expect it to. And then we also do redundant jar tests periodically. First day to make sure they go out, and then we'll just test and make sure we're getting the same results. Because sometimes your pH meter is not calibrated quite right. There's been a few times where we've had different results, and we've had to rectify that on site and make sure that that's going through the process. So they give us a report that looks like this, or they'll tell us every day, what was their jar test results, what was the pre-dose pH, what was the post-dose pH after that, and then we can say, yep, you can go out and apply today. And then they have a log on there too that they give us every day, showing their pH measurements to make sure that that's holding. So it's a pretty streamlined process for doing that. And this is the map that they come up with. So you can see they basically paint the lake. They actually track every pass that they do throughout the lake, and then we can compare that to the application zone that we prescribed. And this one on the left was the 2024 application. It was the same dose across the whole zone. Matt mentioned we did a change order and added a little bit of alum to the deeper part of Centerville Lake, as much as there is a deeper part. And you can see that those two different colors represent the two zones. So as they were applying, if they drove across any of those zones, their pumps automatically changed to meet the rates that are in there in terms of that process. So this is the kind of reporting we would get from the contractor through that process. Just a little bit on why we decided, there was extra grant dollars, so we asked the question, is there scientific basis for putting some more aluminum in there? We didn't want to just put it in there because we had extra money. We do monitoring between those applications, so between 2024 and 2026, and we measure the change in sediment phosphorus release rate. That's what we're trying to stop. And we measure changes in sediment chemistry. And so you can see here in the West Basin, we had a 41% decrease in sediment phosphorus release and a 37% decrease. When you think about it, we put in a half dose. We only put in half the dose that we prescribed. We didn't hit that 50% mark. So that, first of all, and we did a little bit better in the West than we did in the East. So we said that there's some basis there that some additional aluminum would help us really push down those release rates and get us to where we want to go at the end. You can also see, and when we look at aluminum-bound phosphorus, so that's what I'm showing in these two graphs, that's a sediment profile. So the depth of the sediment every 2 centimeters is sectioned. You can see aluminum-bound phosphorus before the application and after. So if we look at the east site, you see that the purple line after, you see a really big increase in aluminum-bound phosphorus. That's the objective of this study, is we're trying to bind that phosphorus on our aluminum permanently. So we saw a really good increase there where it was a big jump. It was much more muted in the west side. So maybe the efficiency of the binding wasn't, it's hard to predict all that in the sediments, so it didn't operate as well as we wanted, so that's why we were able to adjust and put some more aluminum in there to make sure we were getting the binding that we wanted. Just another note on the daily application log. So as they're out there and applying that, they give us every day, they tell us how many truckloads were delivered, how many acres they covered, how many gallons of aluminum or alum that they applied. We look at this every day, we look at the weather every day, and we talk to the contractor. And then on the bottom table there, they're just kind of showing their progress towards the actual dose. So we always know schedule-wise how many days they are behind. So in the case of Centerville, we had one really windy day where it probably wasn't safe for them to be out there, and we don't want the alum moving around. So using this process, we knew we had some buffer in timing. We could say, hey, why don't you guys pause today and not apply when it's windy, and then tomorrow you can come back and do that. So we're always just able to stay in contact about what the schedule is, make sure we're getting the project done on time, and that we're helping the contractor meet their goals in the process at the same time. So now the good stuff, which is the water quality benefit. Matt showed you some of the concentrations before, but on the left we just have some box plots, and you can see after the first half application, this is only half the dose in the spring of 2024, we saw a significant decrease in phosphorus concentrations in the lake. And so those two blue boxes here, I don't know if you can see that, the two boxes there, are significantly less than what they had been in all these previous years. And chlorophyll, which is the green boxes, had also dropped significantly. And that was only with half the dose. We don't have data yet because we just put the other dose in this spring, and so that'll continue to do that process. So that looked really good. But even so, if you look at the phosphorus concentrations on the right here, the bottom phosphorus concentrations are the orange dots here, and you can see they had reached like 300 micrograms per liter in some years. There's some really high concentrations in that bottom water. We've shut that all down since that first half treatment that's in there. So you could say, well, why do the second half treatment? You guys achieved a lot of your goal in the first treatment. You want longevity of your alum treatment. So that first treatment, actually, the binding efficiency in our experience is a lot less. And so by splitting the dose, the second half can really attack the remaining phosphorus that we have calculated in that process. And water clarity increased pretty significantly. So you can see 2024 and 2025 had some of the best water clarity since the early 2000s in terms of that process. We expect that to jump again. In fact, I think Matt was saying that the last Secudis reading was actually on the bottom of the lake. So we had really good water clarity after this last treatment.
How deep is that?
About 16 feet.
16 feet, yes. Wow. That's pretty good water clarity, yep. So in summary, we went through all the data. Solitude met the specification requirements for the Centerville Lake alum treatment. The applications occurred in 2024 and 2026. We did spring applications. The chemical analysis showed they had the right product on site and they put the amount in that they were prescribed to do. We've seen some pretty good water quality improvement after the first half dose application, and we expect further reductions in those phosphorus concentrations moving forward now that we put the second half in. And we would recommend paying the Solitude Lake Management invoice for Centerville Lake based on all that information.
Any questions?
I think got one more.
Mr. Chair.
One more, sorry.
Yep.
I was gonna,
President Bradley.
If
If you have questions for Joe, you could. I have a couple more slides.
Sure, yep.
Any questions for? No?
So I saw you made reference to a 2019, maybe I'm not looking at it correctly, but when was the first alum treatment?
There was an alum treatment in the 1990s.
In the 1990s.
1990s, long before. And we've actually learned a lot in how to dose and how to apply these alum treatments since the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the doses back then, they were significantly lower than what we dose now, because we actually use sediment chemistry now. And before, they were just doing it by how much could the lake receive with the alkalinity that it had. So it had nothing to do with that part.
Okay, but you had a chart on there that you were comparing 2019. Did you, maybe I misunderstood.
Oh, the sediment, the changes in sediment.
Yep, that was the original before the alum application. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so that was your baseline for this?
Baseline before the treatment, right?
Okay,
So
got
that's
it.
what we measure before, and then we measure everything against that
Got
to
it.
see whether we're, yeah,
Thank you, just.
yep, sorry.
I have a question. Actually, two. One, thank you for clarifying that there was a benefit in the additional alum that was placed in there, because when I read the report, I was like, uh-oh, little antenna went up. I don't like the idea of spending money just to spend money, so I
Sure.
appreciate that clarification, and it might actually be good in future if there's things like that to put it in the report, because these things have a life of their own. But the question that I have is, how long will this last? I mean, nothing is forever. Obviously, as you mentioned, there was a treatment done in the 1990s, and it's different now, and I understand all that. But what's your expectation for the life benefit of this treatment?
It really varies by lake, because the process that's going to shorten the lifespan the most is burial. So if you have a lot of watershed loading and that'll bury the alum treatment with new releasable phosphorus, that's what you look at. So a lake with a really big watershed is going to have a shorter lifespan. One with a small watershed should have a longer lifespan. It should be 15 to 20 years for Centerville Lake. It has a very small watershed. You already did a lot of work to reduce that phosphorus loading from the watershed, so you spent the time trying to prepare the lake to get that. So I would expect at least 15 years. This one could last 20 plus because of that small watershed.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? John?
Go ahead, Nancy, go ahead.
No, I want to talk about the state funding on this one, so.
So, Joe and Matt, we used to have a a pump in that lake that sucked the water out of Peltier in, and now that's all gone. So we don't have this, the dam was higher to create the water to back up in Peltier. Peltier's as you explained on Monday, just a difficult situation, and I'm sure that when the pump was pulling water out of Peltier, that had a phosphorus impact into Centerville. So do you expect that without the pumps these days, that's going to add to the longevity of this treatment?
Yes, President Bradley, Manager Waller, that was the issue that you're referring to is one of many issues that we looked at when we were doing the diagnosis phase of this report. So as you mentioned, St. Paul Water Services used to draw water from Centerville Lake. There was a pump house. That water was pumped down for treatment for drinking water from the city of St. Paul. That infrastructure has since been removed. But when they used to pump water out of Centerville Lake, it would lower the water level. Water would backflow from Peltier into Centerville Lake, and that constituted, we think, a pretty significant source of phosphorus input into Centerville Lake. Now that that pump is no longer there, that backflow happens much more rarely now from Peltier to Centerville Lake. So that source of phosphorus loading has mostly been removed from the equation.
And Matt, you'll remember a long time ago, you were talking about a lot of things that have been done on this lake to improve the water quality. And that reminded me of the Anoka County Highway Department. Mm-hmm. And they actually planted some more salt, or I should say grass-resistant, or grasses that they expected on the very east shore between the highway and the lake shore. They tried to keep the grass there so it wasn't bare soil washing in. Now, I mean, there's been a lot of things done with, I don't know how, I never really heard how, the grass is still there, so I guess it's a success, but this grass was supposed to be a little more salt resistant than what normal grass was. Just bizarre things that have been done with that lake.
Yes, Manager Waller, I think you're referring to the photos on the left-hand side of the screen here. As part of that shoreline stabilization, they use some different grass species.
Salt-resistant grass.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Chair?
Yes. Are there further questions?
I'm sorry.
Did you have any questions?
No?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, President Bradley, I have a couple more slides in the motion.
I just was wanting to make sure we give an opportunity to close off
Yes.
any questions we had for him. This was
Excellent.
no way intended to close off discussions of what you really want, which is approval of spending money.
It's right.
So,
Thank you.
But let me ask, Bald Eagle, is that about 15 years right now?
First treatment was 2014, so about 13 years? Yeah.
13,
Yeah. Yes, since
A
the
little
start
more
of
than
that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. President Bradley, members of the board, just a couple slides to close us out here. What are the next steps here for Centerville Lake? I mentioned this earlier, but there's been a lot of great work to install Watershed best management practices to treat stormwater. Both the Watershed District and our partners, like the city, county, those types of partners, need to make sure that those BMPs are maintained so that they're properly functioning going ahead. In our diagnostic phase of this project, we're assuming that all of those projects that have been installed are working and are properly maintained. They need to be maintained in the future. Of course, we'll continue to monitor water quality out here. We're doing that. Actually, we're going to be out in the lake tomorrow collecting samples to see how things are going. And occasionally, we will collect sediment samples, as in this photo on the right here. We do that on Bald Eagle as well, and a number of other lakes as well, because we know that internal phosphorus loading can be an issue. This isn't something that we do every year, the sediment core collection, but perhaps every 2 to 4 years, something like that, 3 or 4 years, something like that. Also just wanted to note, we have gotten some early praise from lake residents and users. This was a compliment that came to us via Anoka County Parks staff. So this was submitted to Anoka County Parks probably because somebody was launching their boat through Anoka County Boat Launch. But this person just noted that they've been fishing and boating on Centerville for 30 years. The impact is tremendous. They're really happy with the way that it went. Tax dollars being well spent. So wanted to share that compliment with the board. So if no other questions, there's a proposed motion on page 38 of the packet.
Did you want to make your little comment about spending money first, or?
Well, let's do the motion and then I'll make it in my
Give our
comments.
Anoka County people an opportunity.
So this is Janet. I would move to approve the final payment to Solitude Lake Management for the Centerville Lake Alum Treatment Project in the amount of $557,681.70.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. So, any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm putting on my member of the Clean Water Council. And just to remind the board that this was $1 million from the citizens of Minnesota who voted to tax themselves for water quality benefits. This was part of the competitive grant project, which is also up for discussion with the Clean Water Council going forward. And maybe that line might be reduced now that all the watershed plans have been completed. So just a heads up, on Monday, the Clean Water Council is looking for input on how they will manage this year's funding that comes from this fund. So we got this because it was an excellent application for an excellent project. But people need to be very clear that this is state money going to one lake and one watershed. It was also approved because it was in our comprehensive water plan. So as we talked on Monday about aligning the city plans with the renewal of the watershed plan, this will be important work going forward. And again, just to be clear, we had this project on our anticipated projects. We would have done this with or without the competitive grant. And so therefore, to some extent, I would suspect, so therefore, there is $900,000 that is in our anticipated project fund. And that's how we get that money.
Super. Any comments or questions? Any further things, discussion?
I call a question, Mr. President.
Very good. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Thank you both, gentlemen. Wonderful project.
Yep.
It's great when we're lucky and successful. Nick?
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers, next on the agenda is the HEI, Houston Engineering Task Order 25-02. This is a amendment to that. It is found on page 44 of your packet. You'll recall the district requested Houston to enter into this task order, and here we are to revise it to include ecological restoration strategies. This is to prepare a response for the project permit, and we're seeking the board authorization for the task order change. This is the Jones Lake project, as we commonly refer to it. We're responding to the cities of New Brighton, St. Anthony, and Roseville for their joint petition to the district. It's a flood damage reduction and water quality enhancement project. It's the largest within the entirety of the Ramsey County Ditch 2, 3, and 5 suite of projects. It's central for most of the other projects to ensure the stormwater storage is available for those other projects to move forward. Jones Lake project requires the Minnesota DNR Public Waters Permit because Jones Lake is a public water. So we submitted the permit application, also had several discussions with DNR about their administration of the state statute and rules, and they gave us some suggestions and support in moving forward, and that resulted in this change of scope. It's an additional $38,380, and the current work is budgeted in our 2026 budget, which includes that 1.17 MPCA grant. So staff would recommend authorization of the task order, and the motion is found on page 44. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Nick?
Well, Mr. President, I'll make the motion here so we can have the discussion then. I'll move to authorize the administrator to execute task order 2025-012 Jones Lake Final Design Permitting Change in Scope of Services, Houston Engineering Incorporated, not to exceed $523,380.
Second by Mike Bradley. Okay. Discussion.
Mr. Chair Bradley. I
Yes.
think Mr. Otterness has a comment for the board.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just wanted to comment on a couple things. One is that this task order doesn't include any Houston engineering time. We're simply being a pass-through for the dollars that would be going to Critical Connections Ecological Services. They're providing the scope that's within this task order. And then the second thing I wanted to point out was that's an estimated cost here with a not to exceed cost. We're hopeful that the work can come in underneath that, but this is what we have budgeted for that, or the Critical Connections has budgeted for that based on what they believe to be the outside end of what their scope would be. So we still are hopeful we can come in underneath our budgeted amount by a fair amount, but we still have to get through the DNR engagement there, so I don't want to promise any shortfall yet.
Any questions of Chris or other comments?
Mr. President,
John?
I don't support voting for this extra money today. And as I voted with the majority last time, I said I think this Jones Lake final design and permitting has to go back to the board in a workshop. And this is the reason for this is that this is we've got $2 million, and this is like a $9 million cost. Remember, we asked for $7.8 million, got $860,000, and you already had $1.1 million. So I don't see that I think we have to realistically take a look at what the DNR is telling us and work within it. Jones Wasteland, or Natural Lake as the DNR likes to call it, is not within the drainage system. We don't have any authority through it. We have inlets and we have outlets, and that's kind of like Hall's Marsh, only this is a lot bigger. And district has made a point over a number of years to not get involved with projects that are really basically the city's responsibility. Hall's Marsh being one of them, Lost Lake in Mahtomedi, and the dredging of the spill from the Met Council, another one. Golden Lake over in Circle Pines, and Lock Lake over in Fridley. All of these became city problems. So I would think that we should take, in addition this, I made the original motion for the repair report, and that's got to be long before anybody else was on the board here. And so I think we should go back and take a look, because we have so many new members, and see what we can do with the $2 million plus the $300,000 or so that's in the budget at the moment. See what the rules are for the dollars that have been allocated from the state. For example, we can use them for the inlet structures, and we can use them for the outlet structures. And maybe we can design an outlet structure that meets the DNR's current concerns. And the board did that years ago on Rice Lake and Hugo. They raised the bottom of the outlet structure for Rice Lake from 916 to 922, and it does have a spillway in there a little, so it dribbles out a little more, a little less, but 50-some feet of weir structure and solid steel. So I think that this is a time to take a look at this after 15 years here, to sit down and see what we can spend the $2 million and what we have to match of that $2 million. Maybe it's dollar for dollar, or maybe it's not. But at $9 million cost right now for this particular phase, plus this program, which is under the, as I read this contract, this is a 10-year, and that's why you hear from the engineer that they don't know what the total cost is yet. Be prepared for more. And they're talking about this plant evaluation going on for 10 years. And it seems to me that in the original scope that was passed last year in July, we did have a wetland permit application preparation. And so I find it really unacceptable that the engineering firm would come back now and ask for additional monies for the permit application preparation, because the engineering firm certainly is familiar with having plant surveys and wetland improvements with us for the last 18 years. So I don't think we should authorize money for that we're being asked to today. I think we should return to the workshop and all of us take a serious look at the repair report and what needs to be done, and stop trying to disguise water quality programs as ditch repair.
So thank you for your comments, John. Obviously, the state of Minnesota on 2 separate occasions has given us approximately $2 million, because this is not a city responsibility. This is a regional flooding hazard problem. And we are in the business of dealing with regional flooding hazard problems on a regional basis. We had at our last meeting, we had a report from the engineer where he thought we should best spend that $800,000. Regardless, this project needs to go forward. This is part of the permitting process that we're spending this money on today. And for us to withdraw our permit application and permitting process because suddenly this is not your view of what we should do, I'm sorry, I cannot accept that. Comments?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, and it may be followed by a very unpopular opinion comment. What year, Nick, did this plan that we have now when was that initiated? To problem solve the stormwater management, the flood damage reduction, and the water quality enhancements? Just looking for a year.
Yeah, President Bradley, Board of Managers, the superstorm was in 2011. The petition came soon after. So 2012, 2013, the work began in earnest.
So,
When was the report by Houston Engineering?
no, that's not what I asked.
I'm sorry, I thought it was.
No, I was just asking, when did we start, when did this become the direction for the project? Because I think where a fair comment lies in what Mr. Waller said is, I think the objectives are the same, but maybe the steps to the objective aren't the same as they were in whether you say 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, but still 10 plus years ago. I mean, my biggest impediment with this is, like I mentioned in the last board meeting, we keep calling it Jones Lake visually. No. It's not a lake. In person, it's not a lake. Are there other, maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, so forgive me. Are there other maintenance related things that we can do that meet the objective of mitigating flooding and water quality? And so, I know there's other ditch projects with Ramsey 2, 3, and 5. I might have made those up unless I wrote them down. Nope, I got it right, 2, 3, and 5. Is focusing there now with the resources that we have, absent of waiting on the DNR to stop being so fickle and, kind of causing some permitting issues. Like, does it make sense to maybe come back together and come up with a different, more effective plan? No, listen, you don't have to like what I'm saying. I did preface by saying it would be.
Do not like what you
and that's fine. You don't have to like what I say. My opinion is mine. Yours is yours. We can still be friends at the end of the day. But I think it's a fair question. We are riding hard for a battle plan that is 10 plus years old, and so I'm just wondering if it makes sense to reconsider if the battle plan that was etched in stone 10 plus years ago is still the best plan moving forward. That's all.
So
I'm not trying to pick a fight.
Why?
That's fine. I just wanted to be clear. I'm not trying to pick a fight.
In 2020, we adopted a 10-year plan. And that 10-year plan includes all of the projects necessary to address the flooding problems. This is the, I think, third major project of those projects. So it's not been 10 years, it's been us working forward. And would you please, Mr. Engineer, comment about the plan that's in our water management plan to deal with this problem and how we're progressing along that line?
Manager Bradley, Manager Robertson, your question actually is the very question we've gotten from the DNR and from other regulators as we've been going through this process. What have we done to demonstrate that this is the project that needs to be done? And so we've actually developed a laundry list of alternatives that we've looked at to this project and provided those to the regulating agencies. We actually recently, DNR wanted more information on those, so we actually, they posed several other potential alternatives that they saw that could be done, some of which we had already evaluated, and so we provided back to them, or we're providing back to them information on why those additional alternatives won't meet the project objectives. One of which was, as Manager Waller had suggested, scaling the project back to something that was, solely a lake outlet. But what we found is that doing so does not provide enough benefit to really make a significant difference to the flooding at Interstate 35W or the flooding to the properties that are on either side of 35W. Again, keep in mind that some of those properties, commercial, industrial, and residential, are flooded by the 100-year by over 2, in some cases even 3 feet of water. And so, the project we propose makes significant headway against that, reduces the flood risk significantly. And we've done a lot of study, even within the resiliency work that we had done district-wide, to look at where we could find locations that would provide storage. And really, Jones Lake is the biggest of all of them, that has the greatest potential to significantly make a change in this area. And I truly believe that we just simply cannot achieve a significant reduction there without having the project that we're proposing, with not only the outlet but the dredging within the pond body, to be able to create more storage in there. And again, not to mention the fact that this is a multi-purpose project, so it's not just flooding, but it also is water quality and restoration. That's also a key to the DNR permitting, because the DNR has indicated that a flood-only project is not permittable for the work that we're proposing.
Chris, as part of our permitting process, were we required to do any environmental review?
Yes, we already completed the environmental assessment worksheet and went through that process. Yeah.
Do they require us to limit and review alternatives?
Yes.
So this reviewing of alternatives is part of the DNR process?
Yes, we've already provided that. And then again, maybe another thing that might be helpful for the board to know is that, we went through our initial permit application feeling like we provided enough information to move forward with the permit. DNR saw it differently, which is why they're asking for more information now. And the information they're asking for now, we feel would be most efficiently and provide the strongest support if we're able to utilize critical connections to do this work.
Any other questions, comments?
So just to clarify, Mr. Chair, we've already approved the task order, and now we are revising the task order for $38,000.
Yes, that's correct. To provide information requested by the DNR for our permit, which is required, in order to justify the state giving us $2 million.
Well, we're $7 million short, Mr. President. And on this point, second of all, we got $1 million from the PCA. They don't give you $1 million unless they suspect that there's going to be some pollution problems in there. I suspect that part of New Brighton has had a long history of issues with pollution over there, and we get ourselves into this. This is going to be, I think maybe we should follow the DNR's guidance there and not get into
DNR
too
will
deep
give
in
us its
this.
guidance when we give it the information.
Well, they gave us guidance already. They
Permit.
rejected the permit.
No, they have not. They've asked for more information to evaluate the permit.
So, Mr. Chair, if we pass this, we have an additional $38,000 to do the
Permit application
permit
process.
application. Without passing this, we have half a task order.
And we have to give back the $2 million. All right.
So wait,
Call the question.
no, I have a question.
Okay, please.
Thank you. So the newest kid on the block, I appreciate this discussion. I have a couple questions, just more procedurally. If this went back to a workshop, without us saying yes or no to the whole project at this meeting, how would that negatively impact anything? Is there a timeline that you have to move forward with the permitting process with the DNR? Is there any sort of timeline that we would be up against that would be negatively impacted if you took the time to discuss this further at a workshop? Because I don't necessarily hear that the answer is we shouldn't do anything. What I'm hearing is we're $7 million short of being able to do this project the way it was originally envisioned, that there's some question, at least in one person's mind and maybe in two, that this project might not really be within the scope of the district. I can't comment on that.
No way.
Well, I'm just saying what I heard. I'm just saying what I heard. But
We wouldn't have gotten this far if we didn't have a water management plan that
Okay.
required this work.
Yeah, okay, I'm just saying that, there's a lot of time that's elapsed, and my question is if we tabled this to another discussion, would that negatively impact anything? Are we up against any deadlines?
Yeah, Mr. President, Manager Hageland, what it will do is it will push the work back probably a month at least. Also, I'd have to get back to critical connections, but if we push it back farther, we might be missing some of the information or some of the timing, because a lot of the work that he does is time dependent when he can see the landscape, see species. And so what he provided here in the scope was based on being able to get started right away on this.
Right.
And so I would have to ask him if that's going to negatively impact this. Now, what he isn't doing here is a rare plant species. If he's doing that on a project, definitely a delay absolutely has potentially a year-long delay by missing a few weeks. In this case, I'm not sure that's really the case here, but it certainly would delay our ability to go back and continue with the project. And I'll note that we are up against a deadline for the grant. The grant it has a hard stop at June 30th of 2027.
Okay.
So, that doesn't mean that we have to have every bit of the project done by that point. Realistically, we aren't going to get every bit of it done by that point, but the farther we go in delaying with the getting the permitting through DNR, it could create challenges for the use of the grant dollars potentially.
And if we move forward as you're suggesting, and we are not successful in getting additional state, it's a big gap, then what happens?
If I could respond to that. We have a water management district, which is.
So you would levy for it.
We can levy for it. That's one option. The other option is,
We've anticipated
previously
funds.
mentioned, we already budgeted $1 million, which we didn't need because we got the grant. So there's $1 million there already in fund balances, which is dedicated fund balances. We have enough fund balances in excess of actual projects to fund it by ourselves, but I don't think we would want to do that. That will be a discussion that we need to have. That's a workshop. How are we going to get it done now that we pretty much have been shown that we aren't going to get enough grants to fund this thing. We never really thought we were going to get full grants to fund this thing. We're going to have to fund it some other way. So that's a discussion we have to, but that's not $38,000 to get a permit.
No, but I think what I'm hearing, even from our engineer, is that it's 38,000, but it could be more. And it could be more, and it could be more.
It
And
could be less.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, this is a not to exceed amount.
No, I know that, but I think the questionable part of it is this going to satisfy the DNR? Maybe not. They might ask for more. There might be something that you find in doing it. I just know that sometimes these kinds of things, we've run into this in the city when we've done projects and, there's a butternut tree there. Now we have to
So
do genetics on the butternut tree.
we
Now we
have
have
a-
to do this. And I mean, it never
We
ends.
have momentum on our side
We did. We
now.
DNA sequenced the darn tree to make sure it
Oh
was
my
really, and it was like $5,000.
So we have momentum on our side because we just got almost $1 million more from the state's bonding bill. The DNR is not going to not grant us a permit.
So then that
We
was,
have to explain to the state
Yeah.
and their bosses why they allowed $2 million to go to us because they thought it was an important project for regional flooding purposes, including shutting down 35W. And because the DNR wants to know some darn stuff about more stuff, because that's what they do, that's not going to stop us from getting this permit. We are going to get this permit. We have to go to the governor, we're going to get this permit.
So one last question. Do we have any additional information on the guidelines with the more recent funding? Do we know how we can spend that yet? Has that been communicated?
President Bradley,
Yes,
Board of Managers, the governor just signed the bill on Friday. We haven't had contact yet in regards to that.
Okay.
But I would presume it's in alignment with the grant dollar protocols, which represent that the monies passed and are consistent with the state's constitution. So if they're similar to the PCA grant dollars, it would be for the project, and we've described this extensively, what that project is.
And tell me again, what's the MPCA deadline? Something 2027?
June.
June?
June 30th, 2027. And again.
So a year from now.
That is, to get us forward and move forward, portions of the project. We, again, don't have to have the whole project completed by then. We won't have the whole project completed by then, but we need to, be able to move the project forward enough to actually be able to utilize those dollars by then.
Mm-hmm. And Nick, if you did do this workshop, how quickly could that get scheduled? I mean, I appreciate the
What
urgency that
information
you're
don't you
talking
have?
about.
Yes, what
information
what would
don't
we
you
do
have?
at a workshop?
Well, so to me, it's similar to why we're having a workshop on 10/22/32, which is that this is a project that's been around for a very long time, and there's people on the, let me finish. There's people on the board that aren't as familiar with it as maybe some others. There's things that may have changed, and it's just sometimes a good practice to kind of say, this is a big project. It's a $9 million project or close to it, and it's been proposed since 2012, 2013. I know it's in our watershed plan. Not saying that it's not a project we should do, but it's just, if it's really only gonna slow things down by a month,
So-
and everybody then feels much better about it when we're done, because we're all on the same
Completely
page.
different issues. This is $38,000 to get a frigging permit. Now the bigger, I agree, much bigger question. So now how are you gonna fund the rest of it? Because I agree with you, we've probably not going back to the state well, okay? We've got ways to do that. We've got to sit down and start communications with our cities. Tell them this is where we think we're going, get their input. We've got time for that. We don't have time for the permit. You gotta get the permit. Permit opens up the opportunity to have the discussions about, okay, now we can actually do this project. We've got authority to do it. We need another $5 million to do it. Now, we get it from WMD, we could. We get it from our own existing fund balances, we could. Do we do it in a blend? Those are the discussions we need, and we do those discussions not only at a workshop, but we do those discussions with cities. It's in our plan. Now we need to execute our plan. And we need $38,000 to do that.
I am not suggesting that I think we shouldn't do the project. I don't know enough about this. I mean,
So
Mr. Chair?
give us the $38,000 so we can get to a point where we can comfortably sit down and discuss about the 5 years.
Mr. President, the $38,000 is only going to authorize a plant survey. And then we're going to go down to the DNR and have a chat with the ecological services people, and another chat, and another chat, and another chat. I've already been through this. The last time I remember this plant survey started, it ran up to $100,000 before Manager Hockey and I went down and personally talked to the director of the ecological services in order to put a stop on the cost rising that went up. Now, that's the experience with it. And furthermore, this is a $9 million project. It's not $5 million more. It's $7 million more. And maybe we had to take a serious look at what we're doing here. Whether or not this engineering design is work. I know it's the one they want. It's the bells and whistles. You know, it's a great thing. But nobody really, the highway department didn't give us any money for the highway. Nobody's really concerned about that issue. So I think that it's prudent to go to a workshop and take a look at this and revise our plan and go down to the DNR.
Two different
permits.
steps.
Mr. Chair, if I could just review this whole project very briefly. David came in and we did an update on where we're at with the Jones Lake project, maybe in March at a workshop. Walked through how it came about, how we laid out the Watershed laid out the projects, what had to be done before Jones Lake could be addressed, including Hanson Park and a few other ditch projects that would go forward. Somewhere we have a chart that has the projects and the priorities. I mean, I could go back to it. We have talked about this at great length, and we are now, to your point, have some momentum. We have engaged our city partners in this, the legislature. I think it's, I would certainly support the motion to approve the addition of this work order and keep moving forward.
And to bring it to a different question, bring to the workshop an education of our new members on why we've been doing this and chasing this project as long as we've been chasing it, and how important it is that we keep it going. Because after we get this one, there's a smaller but equally important project, which is to lower the inverts on 35W so that we can get the water to leave that area. And then after that, we have other projects. And by the way, you've got a 2030 plan coming up, and you're going to have a chance. Oh boy, you're going to have fun.
It's a 2050 plan,
you get to
actually.
reevaluate everything.
Yeah.
But right now, we got a 2020 plan, and we need to implement it. We've got $2 million. How the heck do we go back to government and say, oh, we changed our mind, we didn't want to spend $38,000 to meet the DNR's damn demands for a permit?
Mr. Chair, I would call the question, please.
All the question. All in favor of spending, upgrading the amount, Houston Engineering not to exceed $523,380, which is a $38,000 increase, in order to do a study requested by the DNR to grant us a permit, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Oh my God. Oh my
I can't wait
God.
till the press gets ahead of that one. Wait till our partners get a hold of that one.
It's not a no to the project, it's a no
Don't you see
to,
what the people on the, hear this?
I hear what you're saying, which is that you're not even entertaining the fact that you've got 3 people on this board that have questions that they want to discuss further, and that a month difference isn't probably going to make any difference in the whole grand scheme of things. And I don't know why you wouldn't be in support of further discussion.
Because delay is a slow death by 1,000 cuts.
Mr. Chair, I would make a call to order, please. This is not.
We've already had the vote.
No, I understand that. I meant call to order for the meeting in general.
Check register.
President Bradley, we amended the agenda for new item 3. We could continue with that.
Thank you.
President Bradley, Board of Managers, next on the agenda is the district truck, fleet truck edition. There was a handout at the dais. This was a discussion at the workshop on Monday. Additional field vehicle is necessary to get our staff out in the field. Previously had 5 vehicles, now we have 4. We had some loss of capacity. We'll be monitoring the next vehicle that would drop out of our fleet based on the replacement policy, and that would be the monitoring truck. They're outfitted and accessorized for those programs as best possible. So when we purchase this one, we'd look to outfit it in that way. When and how we purchase, we explored the state buying system, but we need to approval to move forward. Dealers typically won't hold vehicles on the lot, while I go and get authorization. So we've budgeted the funds, happy to address any questions. Otherwise, the proposed motion was handed out.
Mr. President, I'll move to authorize the district administrator to purchase an additional pickup truck and related accessories suitable for district purposes and district staff use at a cost not to exceed $65,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Now where is the check register?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the check register dated June 10th, 2026, in the amount of $118,402.69, prepared by Redpath and Company.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I guess this, yeah, passes. District Engineer, Chris, anything?
Mr. President, maybe one thing I can touch on in response to the question that you had gotten from Mr. Robinson at early on in the meeting. He had asked about grant funding availability for public drainage work, and I just wanted to let you know we do get requests like that quite frequently when we have drainage system activities occurring all throughout the state. And unfortunately, the answer is no, there really aren't grant dollars available specific to drainage. Now, that's not to say that there isn't grant dollars for water quality activities that are associated with drainage. There is a multi-purpose drainage management grant, but you have to have a water quality component to the work you're doing. That would, again, provide multiple purposes. But just for cleaning ditches out and that sort of thing, I'm not aware of any outside funding that's available for that.
Thank you. I think that takes us to administrative updates.
President Bradley, that's correct. Board of Managers, just a couple items. Previously, I made note of the outfall structure or the storm drain dislocated and the erosion on Noakine Ditch 5362. The city is investigating that and televising its system, so we haven't heard anything back yet. Anoki Ramsey Judicial Ditch 1. District's initial due diligence found widespread indicators of T&E species. So additional site services is forthcoming to complete that site investigation. As Tom noted at the Monday's workshop, our iron enhanced sand filters are functioning, so that's great news. I'd made note that the bonding bill was signed on Friday the 5th, so we look forward to our contact in regards to that. Matt made note of Centerville being a big success, which it was. Kudos to Matt for all that hard work, and I'll note that Jeff Perry, the park director at Anoka County, reached out and congratulated Matt and thanked him for his leadership. And I do need to ask the board to, if they would please, define to some degree what you would like to see on this workshop. I understand it to be the next workshop, which will be July's workshop.
It may have to be our special workshop on the 22nd. You just might have to expand the whole day.
Okay, the 22nd is the 10/22/32 workshop.
Right, and we put this on top of it.
Okay,
So my viewpoint was you bring, let them read what we have in our water management plan, 2020,
okay.
and have Chris available to answer questions about the water management plan that we've already approved.
Any other comments or interests?
I'd like to see a cut-down version of how we do this, some alternatives. Yeah, I'd like to hear about how we can do the outlet structure, the inlet structures under the present cost that we've received, money's available. Cut out the dredging.
Whether or not those would change the permitting requirement.
Just let him have his opinion, my word. I guess, Nick, what I would ask for is maybe just a highlight on what some of those alternatives are specifically and what they look like. EAWs are hard because, sure, you put out the application for the EAW, but there's so much commentary and there's so much information in the final packet of the EAW. So highlighting specifically, suggested alternatives, I think, would be helpful. And I'm not saying that those alternatives are the best path forward, but I think identifying those and vetting those would be helpful for me. I can't speak for everyone else, but I would appreciate that. And then also maybe just highlighting, because the permit's open, there has been a permit that's applied for, maybe just some details around the permitting. Is it like a CUP with the city where you have a running timeline once it's applied for? Do you have to wrap it up within a year? Do you have 90 days, 60 days? Like kind of maybe just some clarity around the permitting, overall permitting process with the DNR specifically. That would be helpful for me in the context of specific narrative around that project.
And then,
Thank you.
Mr. Administrator, a bigger, more complex question, and one that we do need to address, but I don't think we can address it in the shortfall that we've got necessary to get this permit done, is how we are going to fund this project. Are we going to, what would it cost to do a full thing WMD? How much money do we have in existing fund balances? What would be a rational allocation between the fund balances and the WMD? What steps would we need to take and talk to our partners, and our partners to assist us? That's not something we can do in time frame to get this $38,000 solved. But that's something we have to do, absolutely.
Also, Nick, could you maybe, and I can email you too, if that's better. I can email you kind of what my thoughts are. I understand it's part of the watershed management plan, and I apologize, my scheduling and time management was horrible on Monday and I wasn't able to make it. Maybe just some general questions that I might have regarding the watershed management plan and how etched in stone those things are, what authority the board has if changes need to be made just due to, I don't know, environmental changes or funding changes or whatever the case may be. So I might have some general questions on that. And again, I'm happy to send an email if you are looking for specifics.
Okay. And that is all the updates that I have.
John?
Mr. President, thank you. I did not attend the Washington County Consortium meeting this month because it was the presentation of the wakeboard, and I've already seen that twice. Maybe
You're an expert. You should have been the featured speaker.
I could pass. I know the commissioner attended it, but he was chopping hay at the same time.
Marcy?
I will be at the Clean Water Council public meeting on Monday, representing one of 3 watersheds who will be speaking in favor of continuing to support the watershed-based implementation fund.
Manager Hegland?
Nope, no report.
Manager Robertson?
Mr. Chair, I don't, other than just clarifying with Teresa that I will be present for the remainder of the June meetings, that it is, however, July 22nd, that I don't have a clone available to me on that day, so I will not be here for the July 22nd meeting.
July
Thank you for that.
22nd.
All right, I have nothing further.
Mr. Chair, a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Surprisingly, we're adjourned.